I can sum up the kind of films I was brought up on in one short montage. That's right, a childhood of swords, sorcery, and Ray Harryhausen. I think what appealed to me was the simplicity of it all. I loved the idea that someone could make their way in the world if only they had a trustworthy enough blade. I loved the thought that there were still discoveries to be made and adventures to be had, and I loved believing that all the injustice in the world could be wiped out with a skilled enough sword arm. You know, my imagination was a place of prehistoric adventure where men and monsters coexisted, and an unambiguous good always triumphed over an unambiguous evil. Now, I'd already played Strider, but when I played Golden Axe for the first time, I can't express in any human language how I felt.
This game was like Conan the Barbarian on acid, except this time I wasn't just watching the adventure and combat, I was living it. It had every element needed to fire my imagination. Brutal combat, a variety of opponents, imaginative scenery, monsters, magic, supernatural evil, and a revenge story wrapped around it all. You could even fight your way to victory with a friend in 2-player mode.
I still remember sitting on the floor playing Golden Axe for the first time, just in awe, and I remember calling a friend of mine and saying to her, you know, you've got to come round here right now, I've just discovered the best game I've played in my entire life.
Now, Golden Axe was originally an arcade game made in 1989, and it was ported to just about every platform that existed at the time. Some ports were terrible, and some were great, but obviously no system could quite match the power of the arcade.
The Amiga and Mega Drive versions were the best, with the Amiga being the most faithful to the arcade version, but you know, I still prefer the Mega Drive version even over the arcade original, and I'll explain why that is later, but for now, let's analyse this masterpiece.
So the game opens up with its epic title screen, and if you leave it running you'll see a demo with each of the 3 playable characters. First you have Axe Battler, who is the stereotypical barbarian. His mother was killed by the tyrant Death Adder, who is the main villain of Golden Axe. Then there's Tyrus Flare, an Amazon, another reference to the women warriors from Greek mythology who we also see in Strider. Tyrus clearly chose the short straw because both her father and mother were killed by Death Adder. Finally you've got Gilius Thunderhead, the dwarf. He wants Death Adder dead because he killed his brother. There is more than just an aesthetic difference to these characters. Tyrus Flare is the worst at combat, but she has the most powerful magic. Gilius Thunderhead is the best at combat, but has the weakest magic. And Axe Battler is average when it comes to both combat and magic. The thing that determines which character is good in combat is simple. The further their weapon reaches, the easier it is to fight with them. In terms of moves, all 3 characters are basically the same. You can hack and slash into your opponents and then stand in close to throw them, medium distance to crack their skulls with your pommel, and long range to dismiss them with a blade. You can also perform what my friends and I call the invincible, where you keep hacking at an enemy until he falls away dead. The better the fighter you use, the easier it is to perform. Then you've got the aerial attacks like the overhead slash and the deadly head stab. Where the characters differ is in their long range attacks, although this is purely superficial. The barbarian shoulder barges, the Amazon drop kicks, and the dwarf headbutts. The only unique move is given to the dwarf. By pressing B and C at the same time, Tyrus Flare and Axe Battler will both perform a powerful overhead swing, but Gilius Thunderhead performs a rolling attack.
You know, even though Axe Battler is clearly the main character of Golden Axe, it's always Gilius Thunderhead the dwarf that everyone remembers, and when I first started playing Golden Axe, my sister had a boyfriend who also loved to play the Mega Drive, and yes, this is the same guy who berated me for buying Strider. Anyway, he used to love to play a game called Shining in the Darkness, which is a role-playing game, a dungeon crawler, and it's actually very good. But when I was younger, I loathed this game. I mean, to me it was dull and ponderous. You know, I just looked at it and I saw these numbers and I thought, what the hell is this crap? This crap is for school. But worst of all, every minute he played this game was a minute I wasn't playing Golden Axe. Joke's on me, because when I grew up my gaming horizons expanded and I did play Shining in the Darkness, and who has a cameo as the blacksmith of the game? None other than Gilius Thunderhead. You can also see one of the thieves from Golden Axe immortalised up there too.
These thieves appear both during the stages of the game and at the camp scenes between those stages. There are blue thieves and green thieves. With a swift kick, the blue ones give you magic pots which will add to your meter, which differs in size depending on the character you chose. Each of the 3 characters has a different kind of magic. The barbarian has earth magic, the Amazon fire, and the dwarf lightning. The green thieves drop food which will restore 1 bar of lost health. Other inhabitants of this land, which is called Uria, include the Bizarians, creatures that can be mounted and used in battle. There are 3 kinds of Bizarian: the chicken leg, which swings its tail as its method of attack, the green dragon, which breathes fire, and the red dragon, which shoots fireballs. So you've got 3 hardcore characters with a good array of moves, the ability to cast magic, and the ability to mount powerful creatures. All you need now is a nice array of opponents to go up against, and fortunately, Golden Axe delivers. You've got mace men, club men, lizard women, giants, knights, and no one can forget the skeletons.
I personally think that skeletons too often get a raw deal. If you look at other video games and even tabletop games like Warhammer, you'll see that they are generally amongst the weakest creatures.
But not here. No way. These are old school Jason and the Argonaut style skeletons, and they'll butcher you quicker than you can say no! Even the boss characters seem to acknowledge this fact and always have them by their side. Yeah, they wouldn't be so cocky if it wasn't for their undead bodyguards. But wait, before I get to the boss characters, there's something that needs addressing.
There seems to be some confusion as to who Death Adder actually is in the Mega Drive version of Golden Axe. Well, let me clarify this once and for all.
In the arcade game, there were 5 stages with Death Adder as the final boss. To make up for the fact that the Mega Drive obviously couldn't compete with the arcade game in terms of visual and audio quality, they added 2 new stages into the game and a new final boss. Death Adder is who he has always been, the guy you fight in front of the castle. How do I know this? Well, because the ending of the game also differs and gives you a complete cast listing which clearly identifies the characters. Death Adder Jr., you fight him as the final boss in beginner mode, which is the first 3 stages of the arcade mode made easier. Now, Death Adder is just a big tough adversary, but Deathbringer? I love Deathbringer. Not only can he cast either the dwarf's or barbarian's magic if he hits you, but if you let his shockwaves touch you, he'll unleash the full force of the Amazon's magic in the form of a dragon. Contrary to popular belief, his skeleton bodyguard can actually be killed eventually, but they clearly weren't intended to be. So how exactly does the Mega Drive version compare to the arcade original? Well, the arcade version has superior graphics and sound as you'd expect, and there are more frames of animation for the characters. There is also an oddity with the Mega Drive version in that there is actually no Golden Axe. In the arcade version, Gilius wields a Golden Axe, presumably the same Golden Axe of the title. But on the Mega Drive, this had to be scaled down to a Silver Axe. It wasn't until Golden Axe 2 that Mega Drive owners actually saw a Golden Axe of any kind. Despite all of that, the Mega Drive version of Golden Axe is still my favourite, and not just because of the extra levels. The gameplay itself feels different, dare I say, better. It has to be remembered that arcade games were really designed for one purpose, consuming money. Because of that, those games weren't necessarily fair, and certainly in the case of Golden Axe, the arcade version is far harder. I just feel that the Mega Drive port truly has that balance just right. The Mega Drive version also contains the aforementioned beginner mode and the duel, in which you can face off against a variety of opponents or a second player. Now this game is only 5 years younger than I am, and it's still the best hack and slash game ever made. It is perfect in every respect. The only game in its genre that has come close to its brilliance in the last 2 decades is Severance Blade of Darkness from 2001, and I always viewed it as a spiritual sequel. It was clearly heavily inspired by Golden Axe, and why not? Golden Axe is, after all, legendary.
What can I say? It's one of my all-time favourite games and a true classic which spawned a variety of sequels and spin-offs, including Golden Axe 2 and 3, Revenge of Death Adder on the arcade, Golden Axe Warrior for the Sega Master System, Axe Battler for the Sega Game Gear, Golden Axe The Duel for the Sega Saturn, and Golden Axe Beast Rider for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Now, I'll get to all of those games in time, but for now there really is no excuse not to have played the original Golden Axe in some form or another, whether that's through the Wii Virtual Console, the Xbox Live Arcade, or even just by downloading the free PC remake. There really is no excuse, so what are you waiting for? Enjoy.